evening's Town of Amherst Town Board meeting of Monday, April 7th, 2025. Going to begin this evening with an invocation. I'd like to start by welcoming Rabbi Mendy Lepkowski, and Rabbi Laser Lepkowski will present this evening's invocation, as I understand.
Almighty God, I begin my prayer with an act of charitable kindness. Here's a charity box. Creator and master of the universe, after the biblical story of the great flood, which you spared Noah and his family, you gave guidance and instructions through them to all humanity. You taught how to lead a moral, ethical, and productive life in the form of the 7 guiding principles, also known as the 7 Noahide laws. These laws are found in the Bible that include to worship you, not to blaspheme your name, not to commit murder, not to engage in illicit relationships, not to commit theft, not to be cruel to any living creature, and for every society to be governed by just laws that are based on the recognition and acknowledgement of you, O God, as a sovereign ruler of all mankind and all nations. Almighty God, guide your members of the City Council who convene here to fulfill your very guidance and establish such laws. Bless them with health, clarity, wisdom, and compassion. Almighty God, I beseech you today to bless the council members, staff, and the entire town in the merit of the great leader and spiritual giant, Lubavitcher Rebbe, Menachem M. Schneerson, who described this country as a nation of kindness, who passionately share the richness and importance of the 7 Noahide laws for all to embrace, and his birthday will be commemorating this week and recognized here this evening. Finally, I ask you to bless our town supervisor, Brian Kulpa, and all the council members with peace of mind to fulfill their sacred duties. May it be your will, Almighty God, that the efforts of this council members be successful, empowering all individuals of this great city to be decent human beings, celebrate each other, reverent of you, and ready to do the part towards the ultimate goal of a perfect world in which your presence will be manifested. And let us all say, Amen. We'll be happy to read about it.
You can.
Okay. Education is Sharing Day is commemorated each year on the birthday of Lubavitcher Rebbe, Rebbe Menachem Schneerson, of blessed memory, which is 4 days before the Jewish holiday of Passover. The Rebbe arrived on the shores of this great country in 1941 after escaping persecution in the war-torn Europe. In 1950, exactly 75 years ago, just 5 years after the Holocaust, he accepted the leadership of Chabad Lubavitch movements, which has since grown to become one of the largest and fast-growing Jewish organizations in the world. The Rebbe taught his followers that after everything we had experienced in the Holocaust, we shouldn't hunker down and withdraw. Instead, he appreciated the freedom of this country and the courage of his followers to grow their observance, to be proud of their Judaism, and to reach out and encourage others to do the same. But this proclamation is not just about recognizing the Rebbe's behalf in the Jewish community, but something much greater. The proclamation honors the Rebbe's lifelong efforts to promote access to quality education of all people in all communities. Through his life, the Rebbe stressed the importance of moral and ethical education as a bedrock of humanity and the hallmark to healthy society. He urged that education should be reinforced with strong moral values, as stated in this proclamation. The Rebbe believed that education could bring diverse people together through encouraging acts of goodness and kindness, imbued with the awareness that even a single positive act of an individual can make a major impact on the world. So as we mark the 123rd birthday of the Rebbe and the 75th year since he assumed leadership of Chabad, I'm grateful that our town supervisor, Brian Kulpa, and our council members recognize his outstanding and lasting contributions toward the improvement of education, morality, and acts of charity around the world. We dedicate the day to reflect on how each of us can ensure that future generations, and even this generation, receive a quality education rich with purpose and fulfillment. and an education that doesn't just teach how to make a living, but how to live life. One that tells every child they matter, their actions matter. An education that values and cherishes each individual's positive act and good deed. One that fosters our environments which we look out for each other, care for one another, and together make the world a better and brighter place. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm not going to read the entire proclamation because you've covered a lot of it, but I will read part of it. Whereas the basis for the continuity of any society is education, and in the great town of Amherst, the education of our youth is a priority. And whereas, in order to achieve its highest goals, education must not only impart knowledge, but also teach the students how to live, forming and strengthening their moral character to make a better life for themselves as individuals and for society as a whole, imparting moral and ethical values that have been the bedrock of society since the dawn of civilization. Whereas a global spiritual leader and leading advocate for the advancement of education, the Rabbi Schneerson stressed that a moral and ethical education empowers every individual to develop their full potential in making the world a better place. Whereas such an education can nurture the unity of diverse peoples through encouraging increased acts of goodness and kindness, imbued with the awareness that even a single positive act of an individual can change the world and usher in an era of global peace. Whereas Education and Sharing Day is observed each year on the Rebbe's birthday in recognition of his outstanding and lasting contribution towards the improvement of education, morality, and acts of charity around the world. It's a day to pause and reflect on our responsibility, whereas the Chabad Center for Jewish Life has been at the vanguard of Jewish outreach in the town of Amherst, bettering the lives of countless citizens, uniting a variety of faiths and religions for the common purpose of making the world a better place. Now, therefore, the Amherst Town Board does proclaim Wednesday, April 9th, 2025, to be Education and Sharing Day in the town of Amherst, and call upon everyone to work together to create a better, brighter, and more promising future for all.
Thank you.
I would like to thank Rabbi for his thoughtful invocation and for the education regarding the day and the importance of such a leader. With that, I would ask everybody to please rise for a pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And ask our deputy clerks to please read the roll.
Supervisor Caldwell,
Here.
Deputy Supervisor Lavin,
Present.
Councilmember Berger,
Here.
Councilmember Zuccalla,
Here.
Councilmember Marinucci. Here.
This evening, before we begin, I also want to publicly recognize the achievements of UB women's basketball and congratulate Coach Becky Burke. And we're certainly proud to have them play here in Amherst. We're certainly very proud of all that program's accomplished, most notably and recently their WNIT tournament win over Troy. And we look forward to continued greatness out of that program and out of the university. The first item on our agenda this evening is the approval of minutes from Monday, March 24th, 2025.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. The next items on the agenda is another proclamation, this one by Councilmember Marinucci, who will present a proclamation to recognize Arbor Day.
Thank you, Supervisor. The year 2025 is the 153rd anniversary of the holiday of Arbor Day. It is now observed throughout the nation and the world. So I am proud that we, the members of the Amherst Town Board, proclaim April 25th, 2025 as the official Arbor Day event in the town of Amherst. We urge all citizens to celebrate this 153rd anniversary, to support efforts to protect our trees, our woodlands, and further urge all citizens to plant trees to gladden the heart and promote the well-being of this and future generations. As liaison to the tree board, I will make sure this goes to them.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilwoman. Next item on the agenda is the first of 4 public hearings this evening. It's on Resolution 340, the WPCF Oxygen Separation System Replacement Procurement. The public hearings for a bond resolution in the amount of $10 million. I want to first state, we did talk about the oxygen separation system in 2024, and this is not an additional project. It's the same project, and our town engineer Jeff Burrows is going to talk to us a little bit about where we currently are in the project and where the directed funding is. I'm going to motion to open the public hearing at this time.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Supervisor Kalpa. Good evening, members of the town board. My name is Jeff Burrows. I am the town engineer. And the issue before you tonight is the public hearing for the bond resolution for Project S3, which is the oxygen separation system replacement and the 2025 to 2030 capital improvement program. Supervisor was right. We've done some preliminary work on this project back in 2023. The town bonded $350,000 for the design and the development of procurement documents for this particularly important system at the treatment plant. This project is currently and will be a 2-phase project. The first phase in 2025, which is in the CIP, the request is for $4 million for procurement of the actual oxygen separation system equipment. The second phase, which will occur and be financed in 2026, that request provides $6 million for the installation of the oxygen system and construction of the building and the appurtenances associated with it. And the reason that we're clustering this is because in 2025, we're going to apply for a WIA grant through New York State Environmental Facilities Corp., which requires a full bond authorization. If there is no full bond authorization, they will not consider this project for financing. Typical with all plant projects, I start with the schematic. It shows in the boxed out area is the existing facility that generates liquid oxygen for the treatment plant. That existing facility generates high purity liquid oxygen using a cryogenic process. That system feeds vaporized liquid oxygen then to the stage 1 and stage 2 oxygen transfer basins, which are the reactors where we culture a biomass to treat the sewage that comes in from Amherst, Clarence, and Williamsville. So on the existing system, existing conditions, the system is functionally obsolete. The controls are obsolete. There's an electric starter on the one compressor, a motor starter that is obsolete, and we can't get parts for that. There's poor energy efficiency. There's a high cost of maintaining the existing system. As a matter of fact, under current conditions, the costs to maintain it are escalating to a point where it just makes sense to replace it. And on top of that, we have a specialty contractor that helps and with the town, it helps the town troubleshoot issues with the system. The name of that consultant is, name of the company is Mohawk Cryo. That particular contractor is going to retire when this system is put to bed. So I'm going to show a couple of pictures here that generally show the scope of the existing system and show how mechanically complex the system is. A portion of the system, the separation tanks and the storage tanks, are outside. You can see how mechanically complex this is. A lot of this piping has been replaced. The valves are pneumatic. We've replaced valves. But quite honestly, it's a very mechanically complicated piece of equipment that we're going to a much simpler and more energy efficient way of generating high purity oxygen. So rather than using the boiling point of air and its component gases to separate oxygen from atmospheric air, we're gonna go to a VPSA system, which uses a molecular sieve. The advantages of that are that obviously we'll have new equipment, we'll have decades of reliable equipment. It's much more energy efficient. It's about 30% of the existing energy costs of the existing system. And we do not anticipate high maintenance costs at all. And that will ultimately lead to a goal that we can, we continue to stay relatively cost effective at the treatment plant and operationally efficient. Again, the first phase of the funding, the $4 million, this year we will use to procure the existing, the actual components. It takes about a year plus to manufacture the equipment. Phase 2 is 2026 to 2027. That will be for installation, construction, and commissioning of the new system. The phase 1 financing is, again, $4 million. The median home impact for a house assessed at $346,000 is $5.10 on an annual basis on their sewer taxes. And the second phase, which is a $6 million borrow in 2026, will be, that financing cost will be $7.66 on a $346,000 home on an annual basis on the sewer taxes. And with that, I will turn it over for questions from the board and the audience.
Okay, so I'm gonna start with the board. Are there questions regarding the project? Like I said, I know we've talked about this for a couple of years, but are there questions based on the current conditions?
It's critical that we move ahead with this project in order to keep the plant operating.
Jeff, it says decades of reliable. Do you know what's 22 decades, 3 decades?
Probably 2 decades.
Okay.
There's a replacement schedule with this new equipment. As long as we stay up on that, we're probably looking at 2 decades of reliable operation.
Thank you. Any other questions from the board at the moment? Okay, questions and comments from the audience this evening? Are there any? See none, I'm going to motion to close the public hearing. Oh, sorry. Seeker. Before I do that, I'm going to motion to adopt the seeker findings associated with the project.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Now with no other comments, I'm going to motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And a motion to adopt the bond resolution in the amount of $10 million.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We need a voice vote, so I'm going to ask our town clerk for a voice vote, please.
Supervisor Culpa?
Yes.
Deputy Supervisor Levin?
Yes.
Councilmember Berger?
Yes.
Councilmember Segala?
Yes.
Councilmember Marinucci?
Okay. We do also intend to seek, if we can, an offsetting grant for the installation cost, the 26.
Yes.
Yes. The next item on the agenda is Resolution 341, public hearing on the WPCF treatment systems component replacement rehabilitation. It's a bond resolution in the amount of 1.45 million. A motion to open that public hearing at this time.
Second.
All in favor?
Again, thank you Supervisor Culpa, members of the board. Jeff Burrows, Project S4 2025 to 2030 CIP. This is a project called Treatment Systems Component Replacement and Rehabilitation. It's basically a collection of miscellaneous components that we have to procure to rehab existing facilities, bolster an existing project, and do a couple of studies at the treatment plant. The proposed scope of this project, and there's many here, but so we're going to do the best with what we got, is on the construction and rehab portion of this bond. We're going to replace the existing screening structure that's attached to the main pump station. That particular structure has a container for the bars for the screenings that come into the treatment plant. It's corroding and structurally deficient. We're going to repair some existing damaged concrete areas within some tanks. We're going to rehab a couple of the ASDs, asynchronous drives on the main sewage pumps. For new equipment, we're going to replace 2 clarifier drives, replace the chain and flight systems and 2 of the grit chambers, and purchase new radio equipment. The supplemental funding will go to bolster an existing project right now that was awarded without contingency. So it's important to have some money available for that particular project's contingency. And then there's going to be some study that's going to be funded out of this as well. There's a roof that was built over a structure back in the 90s that is it's not in good shape. It's corroding, and we have to determine whether we're going to replace it or rehab it. A couple of pictures here. The upper left picture shows the screening structure attached to the Building 1 pump station. Like I said, we're gonna replace that. There's some spalling concrete in the orb tanks in the lower right. The existing clarifier drives, many of them are original to the treatment plant, which means they've been in service from the 1980s. Those have to start to get replaced. The Magna drives are the ASDs on the main sewage pumps in Building 1. Those have to be rehabbed. And then here's some pictures that show the roof structure over Building 3, the tanks in Building 3. And on the right, you can see the connections on that space frame. And those connections have rivets in them, and they are rusting. So we have to determine whether or not we're going to be able to replace them, or we're going to have to replace the entire roof structure. This particular project schedule is approximately a couple of years. The financing for this project, again, as the supervisor said, is $1.45 million. And that impact on a median home price of $346,000 is $1.85 per year in their sewer taxes. And with that, I will turn it over to the board and for questions, and then to the audience.
Okay, can you go back to the slide with the space frame for a minute? Sure. There are things you don't know that you're necessarily going to get into with the board. So it's an aluminum space frame?
It's aluminum space frame with steel pins.
Steel pins.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Okay, so thanks. So anybody who knows materials,
good job in the early 90s when that was designed and constructed.
put that in a caustic environment.
Put that in a very moist environment, and you've got issues.
It's not the only issues there. Obviously, we have to continue to do maintenance on the facility this year between the oxygen separation system and this. There's a lot of attention in the CIP. So are there further questions from the town board? Gonna turn it to the audience. Are there questions or comments from the audience? Okay, I'm gonna come back to that in a minute, once,
Stringoski, Mill Street. My question is, with all these improvements to Plant 16, is this going to resolve the dumping that's been going into the canal, which the New York State has been citing the town for?
we're gonna have all the answers after you take a seat. So if you have another question, go ahead and ask it. No, thank you. So we have two questions. One question that was kind of came out of the audience, I don't know from whom, about the cost of the actual roof replacement. It's that's part of the study, right?
Yes, that'll be part of the study. So I don't really know exactly what the cost of that will be.
Okay. The second question was, bypass, I believe, right? And
I guess that refers to the bypass that the treatment plant has. The plant has a permit that requires it to treat up to 85 million gallons a day. When there's when there's significant wet weather flows that come into the treatment plant, and flows are 125 to 140 million gallons, we do have something that's available in the permit which allows us to bypass, which means that the wastewater gets pumped, it goes through the EQ basins, it goes to the ORB, and then it's chlorinated and discharged. So it gets primary treatment and chlorination before it's discharged. In general, almost always that combined effluent from the treatment plant and the bypass meets water quality standards. We're in good shape with the DEC on that.
okay, thank you. Are there further questions or comments from the audience? So you got to come up to the microphone, please.
Good evening. My name is Rocco Del Grosso. I live at 16 Lake Ledge Drive, Williamsville, New York. My question is on in instances like the rivet situation on the beams. Having spent 54 years in the major construction business, the appearance does not necessarily mean a weakness or a failure.
Sure.
And is that type of thing being done before we're moving as far as feasibility, practicality, water blasting, sand blasting, media blasting to clean them and seal them?
So, yeah, well, sorry. Okay. I mean, I'll let Jeff answer to tech.
Go ahead.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. No, that's a good question. There was a study done a couple of many years actually before I came back. They tried to X-ray them to determine section loss, and it was really difficult in that configuration to X-ray them. But we do have a qualified structural consultant who's going to do an evaluation to see whether or not we can rehab these pins or encapsulate them somehow to make sure that we can do this as cost effectively as possible. Because quite honestly, it's a big building, it's a big roof. It's going to cost a decent amount of money if we have to replace it.
So the goal is repair in place.
So Jeff, as noted in the supporting documents, the structural study was performed in 2008 to evaluate the superstructure, and that it noted that the steel pins in connection had corroded severely, recommended that pins be replaced in their entirety. Town of Amherst employees then attempted to remove some of the steel pins under the direction of the structural consultant. Pins were not able to be removed, and I believe that was the justification for commissioning this study as part of this bond to make sure we were moving forward in a proper way. Correct me if my understanding was incorrect.
No, that's correct. But there was a further study to try to determine section loss by radiographing them, and they could not do that. So I think the assumption is that there's a lot of section loss based on a visual inspection. But it's really hard to know what's going on inside that connection unless you can get a pin or two out. And it was very difficult for us to get. We attempted, from my understanding, I wasn't here. Town forces tried to get a couple of the pins out.
Anything further? Seeing none, I'm going to motion to adopt the secret findings associated with the resolution.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And I'm going to now motion to close public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And I'm going to motion the bond resolution in the amount of 1.45 million.
Second.
And I'm going to ask our town clerk for a voice vote, please.
Supervisor Culpa,
Yes.
Deputy Supervisor Levin,
Yes.
Councilmember Berger,
Yes.
Councilmember Zucallo,
Yes.
Councilmember Marinucci.
Yes.
Okay, thanks, Jeff. Next item on the agenda is Resolution 342, Lighting District Extension at 4300 Millersport Highway. I'm going to motion to open the public hearing at this time.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. And I'm going to ask our Deputy Town Attorney to please present the resolution.
Thank you, Supervisor Culpa. I'll be brief. This is a new development that's being added to the lighting district. The attorney for that development, Sean Hopkins, is here to answer any more specific questions. In a nutshell, it is 24 streetlights being put in at the developer's sole expense. The public hearing is now open on that topic. Thank you.
Okay, so Sean, can you please come forward?
Well, I'll add something. We are requiring all new developments to put in lights
Yep.
to our specs.
So, yeah, just so, okay, so council member just kind of clarified, right, the initial questions, which are, these lights are being provided by the developer and borne on the developer's cost.
Yes, and pursuant to the town's latest and greatest specifications for public lighting.
Okay. Are there questions from this board, for either, the attorney's office or the developer's representative? Are there questions or comments from the audience? Seeing none, I'm going to motion to adopt the negative declaration associated with the project.
Second.
All in favor? Next, I'm going to make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor? And a motion to adopt the lighting district extension.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next item on the,
Do I have to do the vote?
next item on the agenda is resolution 343, which is a proposed rezoning at 1692 Maple Road. I'm going to motion to open the public hearing at this time.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Yes, good evening Supervisor Culpa and members of the town board. Sean Hopkins on behalf of the applicant. We're here this evening in connection with the request to rezone the parcel located at 1692 Maple Road from R3 Residential District 3 to OB Office Building District. The site is approximately 0.96 acres in size. This is located at the northeast intersection of Youngs Road and Maple Road, highlighted here. As I indicated, the current zoning is R3. The proposed zoning would be OB. The proposed use here is not particularly intensive. It would be a single-story ambulatory surgery center with all related improvements. There's an aerial photograph of the project site. Again, to acclimate everyone, we have Maple Road, Youngs Road, Air Road here, and then Millard Fillmore Hospital, which I'll show you on the next aerial photograph, is obviously a very short distance away. That's what makes this an attractive location for a specialized medical office provider such as this. And I think this is also consistent with the policy that was formulated during COVID in terms of encouraging a medical spine in that area in close proximity to the only hospital located in the town of Amherst. This site has been zoned R3 since 1976, so obviously 49 years. Since that time, a lot has changed in that area. There's been very intensive development, including numerous office building projects, et cetera, et cetera. So we do think it's appropriate at this time to revisit that outdated, in my opinion, R3 zoning classification. And given the predominant character of that stretch of Maple Road, we do think OB is the most consistent zoning classification with the town's planning objectives. Green shows those areas currently that are zoned R3. You can see directly to the west, large parcel zoned OB, and then Millard Fillmore Suburban is actually zoned CF, but obviously is a much more intensive use than what we're proposing. Just to acclimate everyone, this is the parcel close proximity to Maple and Air that was rezoned to DC5 by the town board in late 2022 to accommodate an approved but yet to be built mixed-use project. Concept plan. So all this will still need to be vetted by the planning board in connection with a future request for a site plan approval. But we're showing currently on the concept plan is a single-story, 9,000 square foot building. My client has spent a great deal of time. It's a little bigger than they need in 2025, but they do want to make sure that this can accommodate growth. They're relatively young providers, and they envision that this will be their location for many decades to come. We are showing 32 parking spaces, which we think is sufficient both for their customers and their patients. Approximately 50% of the site would be green space. We did deliberately not put any parking up along Maple Road to try and protect that view shed of that commercial/residential corridor. The conceptual elevation plan prepared by Carmina Wood Design, much like many of the newer, smaller ambulatory surgery centers and specialized medical practices in Amherst, this will feature a portico share for drop-offs, a wide assortment of upscale mixture of materials, and extensive glass. It will be a very nice-looking building, probably cost in the ballpark all in of about $600 per square foot. So at 9,000 square feet, you're talking a $5 million investment on a very small parcel. It is quite clear this is consistent with the adopted bicentennial comprehensive plan, specifically figure 6 of the plan, which is difficult to see here, does recommend that this be zoned commercial office. The R3 zoning classification that's existed since 1976 is simply not consistent with the planning objectives established over the course of the past several years. The planning department, as it always does, provided you with a very detailed letter supporting documentation. Thank you very much. That's part of your application package. And within that letter, they also touch on the reasons the planning board has determined this is consistent with a comprehensive plan. And those include citations to economic development, transportation and infrastructure, the particular location along the northern segment of Maple Road, in close proximity to the hospital, et cetera, et cetera. The planning board did take a look at this and held a public hearing on February 20th. Ultimately, they adopted a favorable resolution to this board by unanimous vote, recommending 2 things. Number 1, the issuance of a negative declaration pursuant to the State Environmental Quality Review Act. And then secondly, and just as importantly, the rezoning from R3 to OB. The planning board did issue detailed findings that are contained in its resolution, which I've highlighted on the left-hand side. And secondly, they did recommend, keep in mind, recommend in their advisory capacity 2 conditions. The 2 conditions they recommended are that we provide a 75-foot wide non-disturbance area conservation easement along the northern portion of the site. And secondly, that any future buildings on the site be limited to a maximum of 35 feet in height from finished grade. We're asking for those conditions to be modified somewhat. So this is literally our concept plan. And I want to highlight again, our building from the northern property line, this is a residential lot with a very nice single family home, that is 240 feet away from that single story building. The parking and access aisle, et cetera, that's about 40 feet. So instead of 75 feet, what we're proposing is a 30-foot wide green space, permanent open space buffer here. It's relatively heavily vegetated. That would provide the area to ensure that vegetation remains in place, while also making sure we have enough parking on site. If there was available parking on Youngs Road and Maple Road, which there is not, we could simply scale that back to about here and probably only lose about 6 or 8 parking spaces. But we can't afford to do that at this location, because the last thing we want to do is create a situation where people are looking for parking on those streets, which of course would not be safe. And then the second condition of a maximum height of 35 feet, given that the height of the building we're proposing today is only 20 feet, we would accept that if we have to. My only concern is, of course, times change, and I think 35 feet may be a little bit low. If it was 3 stories or 50 feet, that would be okay. But absolutely what we're intending to build in 2025 is a smaller building with a height of only 20 feet. So that's a topic that can be discussed. I would note this is subject to an environmental review pursuant to the State Environmental Quality Review Act. Extensive documentation has been provided, including a no impact letter issued by the New York State Office of Parks, Recreation, Historic Preservation on December 12th of 2024. We've also obtained a wetland investigation letter from Scott Livingston of Labella that confirms, even based on the updated DEC wetland regulations that went into effect in January 1st of this year, that in their professional opinion, there are no wetlands subject to the jurisdiction of either the United States Army Corps of Engineers or the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation on the site. The planning board recommended the issuance of a negative declaration, and quite clearly a project of this scale and magnitude at this location will not result in any potentially significant adverse environmental impacts. With all that being said, we're asking to consider two things. First of all, of course, closing the public hearing. Then second, issuing a negative declaration and approving the rezoning subject to that modified condition as I indicated, that a 30-foot wide non-disturbance area be provided along the northern portion of the project site. If there's any questions, I would welcome the opportunity to address them. Thank you.
Can you go back to the site plan?
Sure.
With the understanding that this has to go through full site plan review yet?
It does.
One of my concerns with this project, first of all, is the dimension from the building to the eastern residential. Yep,
Right here,
that
right.
offset is.
Right.
I don't know what that is offhand.
It's about 15 feet
To the property line.
to the property line.
Another 10 to 15 feet to the building.
I'd say it's about 15 feet on each side, meaning their house is about, that's their garage, I believe here. I'm not sure, about 15 feet. And I think on our side it's about 15
So
feet.
I think the dilemma is with the front or the traditional front of the building, in this case facing the parking lot away from Maple.
Right.
Right. So what we're left with is going to be some kind of static frontage along Maple. Which, I don't know if you have that elevated.
Yeah, I mean, I think we can certainly work with the town in terms of the elevation on the south side, but you can see we haven't just put a blank wall.
So the dilemma, though, if you go back to the site plan, right, is, if I don't know if you're anticipating a transformer or hot box somewhere on the road.
I would hope that we could tuck that here, although getting National Grid to give you a location in advance isn't possible.
I understand. Then mechanical units out in the building, are they all
Rooftop in the center, and they'll be shielded per the requirements of the code.
Nothing, no condensers, no split systems, nothing on the outside of the building?
We're envisioning all of that would be rooftop and again, screen. That's one of the benefits of a flat roof.
I mean, my concern would be, with Maple Road and Youngs Road on the two blank faces, that leaves one blank face for that stuff. And I would not want to see mechanical systems east in that 15-foot setback.
Sure. Oh, absolutely, right.
Yeah.
If the board wanted to impose a condition that states that we can't put those there, I'm absolutely fine with that.
That would be at least one condition I'd be looking for in this case. I think that again, this is a site plan. We're talking about granting a rezoning, right? So, the site plan might change. I would not want to see mechanical units facing residential.
I agree with that.
Questions or comments from the rest of the board at the moment?
I do have one quickly. There's a note here in not the packet from your office, but from the internal town department, that Youngs Road is a limited access highway which does not allow these driveways. You have two driveways currently on Youngs Road. And I know, again, this is a concept plan, we're not at site plan approval, but what would be the plan if the building's up front that way, if we were going to do a driveway off of Maple, or are you not looking for that at all?
Right. So pursuant to a local law that was adopted by a predecessor board, I think it was 1980 or 1982, any driveway onto the relative segment of Youngs Road requires the issuance of a special approval by the town board. We will need to make that request. The reason we're not proposing any driveway onto Maple Road is we're probably all familiar with that intersection. If we had a driveway here, it would simply be within the functional area of that intersection and it wouldn't work. We know and we're 100% confident we'd get a request back from the Erie County Department of Public Works, which has jurisdiction over Maple Road as a county highway, to eliminate that driveway. So we are proposing access limited to Youngs Road. Could we make this work with only one driveway? Yes, indeed, we could. I think it would be less convenient in terms of interior access for the providers and the customers. And I also think, given that we all have to acknowledge that area can be very busy at times, having two access points for emergency vehicles as well, I think is beneficial. But that will have to come back in front of the town board separately. And I believe you will receive a recommendation from the Traffic Safety Board as well.
Okay. Anything further from the board at the moment? Questions or comments from the audience?
Don Smith, North Long. Just a sort of a simple question. There seems to be an awful lot of site plan information in with the zoning change, which does sort of bothers me a tad here. And I think maybe by loading this design this way, it's not proper for things that are going to happen later on in the process. So it sort of ties the hands of other people that shouldn't be tied. So I would suspect that if we do that, I suspect you do it in a way that allows things to change. For instance, if the building height is much higher than what they want, the dimensions as to what the local residents will see have to change, and that sort of thing. So I'm just thinking it's too much focused on the site plan and not focused on the use process involved. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Don. I know at times this town board gets into planning board territory, and some of the comments and questions went there.
And I would only note for the record, the comments are useful but not necessarily correct in that you have to model something for purpose of environmental impacts. So if we simply submitted a survey and said rezone this and we'll figure out the details later, that absolutely would not comply with the requirements of the State Environmental Quality Review Act. So we're required, again, to show you something so that you can ensure you comply with seeker by taking a look at those environmental impacts. And that's all this is meant to do. It's an illustrative of what we believe the layout will be. Again, subject to engineering, subject to vetting by numerous departments, and ultimately an additional public hearing to be held by the planning board.
I do think that there is something to be said in a rezoning when you're going from residential and nearby residential to a commercial facility. I mean, commercial mechanical, commercial generators, commercial, commercial hot boxes, that's all very different than a residential, right? So when you're asking for a rezoning, yes, the site plan may be inconsequential at the moment, but an understanding of how the site mechanics are going to work, it is a relatively narrow site, compared to other larger commercial sites. But understanding the mechanics of that and setting some tolerances and buffers, I think is important. So, as we move forward, I'm going to continue to push for an assurance that we're not going to have mechanical systems supporting an ambulatory center next to residential. Are there further comments from the audience?
And he's got his name.
Dennis Hoban. I have two questions. What are the setbacks on Young's Road? What is that supposed to be from where the building is to Young's Road? Is that supposed to be like 20 feet? Because that looks like about 10 feet. Am I wrong about that? 23 feet from Young's Road? Okay. All right. Thank you. Right. Young's Road. And what is it, like 30 feet or 40 feet? Must be about 40 feet to
That's
Maple.
the planning board issue, the setbacks.
Well, it's just a question.
Are you just asking for what the smaller numbers are right there? The smaller number at the front to Maple Road is 40 feet right there. Again, subject to that this is just a concept plan, not site plan, but that is what it currently is drawn as. Dennis.
Okay. All right. And that's within the code.
No. So again, as measured from Young's Road, we would need a setback variance because of the fact we have two frontages, one on Maple, one on Young's. Those are both front yards.
So you have to go for a variance.
We would.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying that. Also, I have a question. Is the money that's going to be used to build this medical building, is this industrial development money, or is this a pilot, or can you explain that?
Yeah. I mean, if you have other questions,
That's the only two questions I have. Thank you. Yep. And I've seen you up here before, Sean. I think you do a good job. But I've seen you here a lot, haven't I?
So in terms of financing, we're not there yet. Certain specialized medical practices could potentially qualify for a pilot to be obtained by the Amherst Industrial Development Agency. I don't believe we'll be seeking one, but I can't answer that unequivocally. There are instances in the past where larger surgical centers have received that. There's some very specific statutory criteria that need to meet pursuant to the relevant sections of New York State General Municipal Law. So as far as I know, we don't intend that at this point in time, but again, it is a very large investment, and regardless of whether there would be a pilot in place or not, it will generate much larger annual property taxes from year one for the school district, the town of Amherst, and the Erie County, compared to what's there today. Again, a vacant parcel, only about an acre in size, with no development on it whatsoever.
Okay, anything, there was another question, somebody?
Sorry.
John Traber, Mount Vernon Road. When he says a substantial amount of tax dollars, can we come up with a number at all? We've got zero right now on a vacant plot of land, but will the taxpayers see any relief with something like this, a project like this? Can you give us a ballpark on what a building like this would pay in property taxes?
Offhand, I can't, but we can, we're not gonna make a design, zoning decision tonight, so we could come up with something by next meeting, I'm sure.
Okay, again, when you develop, you develop to expand your tax base to give the taxpayers a little bit of relief. And that's just an important question. Thank you.
I don't know exactly what the estimated annual taxes will be. I could come up with a general ballpark number.
Sure.
In terms of whether this will result in relief for taxpayers in the grand scheme of the town's budget, this is fairly minuscule, but it will be beneficial in that it'll be paid by a private developer, will not generate any demand for educational services, and all infrastructure on site will be private. So from that perspective, it's beneficial, but very incremental.
You said it's about a $5 million investment.
Yeah, $5 million. I do want to note, Supervisor, that includes obviously all the medical equipment. Very expensive build out. So probably about $600 a square foot all in.
Which isn't gonna end up being the assessed valuation.
Exactly.
So,
Some of those improvements won't go to the assessed valuation. But I would say at least $300 a square foot just building in shell and interior improvements, basic interior improvements. So you're still looking at 2.7 just there.
yeah. Okay, all right.
Let's close the public hearing.
Any other questions?
Can I ask another question?
Is it, if it's relevant to the project, sure.
I probably should have clarified earlier when I asked about the AID number or money and the, if it was a pilot. I was interested, seeing as how every time I come to one of these meetings, it seems like there's, a project being built in the town of Amherst, and our taxes keep going up all the time. And it's a very good question that Mr. Trabert asked was, how much tax money are we going to get from this thing? I think it's, it looks like a good project, but if it's AID money, Amherst Industrial Development money, or if it's a pilot, we're not going to get as much tax money as if the developer's paying for the whole thing out of his own pocket or he's going to a bank or something. So that's always a concern. That's always a concern of mine, that with all this building going on, our taxes just keep going up. And, it'd be nice to know if we're going to actually see some property taxes come from this building, which would be great. I know the Industrial Development Agency, I think the first year, correct me if I'm wrong, they pay like 1% or 0% interest or taxes. It goes for like 10 years. Okay, it used to be like that. It's not like that anymore. They changed it.
Just for clarity's purposes, are you for or against the rezoning here? So right now it's single family zoned, right? And so that would be a single family home that could be built on this property. And then versus the taxes that may be assessed with an office building zoning. I want to make sure, as Councilmember Berger said, that we are focused on what we're asking here, because whatever this does end up looking like is when we'll figure out that. But right now, it's single family zone for a single family household. The request is to change it to office building, which would have its own
Right,
type of
I get all that.
Okay, so I just want to make sure, are we looking at the taxes versus a single family home that's not built on this property right now, or?
No, I would assume we'd get more tax money out of this.
Okay,
If
so
it's
in
$5 million,
favor, okay.
I don't think we'd, I think that's common sense. I don't think we'd be getting the same amount of money out of a house that was built on that property. But the question I have, though, concerning the setbacks is, if they ever, Young's Road is an extremely busy street. So in the future, let's say they want to widen Young's Road, and this building looks like it's, they're going to have to get a variance. I'm not sure that, does that come into play right now, tonight? Or they have to get the variance, obviously.
And they would have to have a full site plan for that, which will be in front of the planning board.
But
And,
Young's-
A variance
or,
goes to
but
the
the
ZBA.
site plan would go to the planning board, which with the public hearing.
We're conflating
Okay,
lots
so-
of future things. We're
Yeah.
just
Right.
looking at the rezoning.
So
I understand, we're just looking at the zoning.
There will be
But
another public hearing on this.
this microphone is weird.
So-
The sound system in this room is terrible.
we're updating that. If you were at the last meeting, you would have heard that. The
I couldn't do it
process
the last meeting,
is,
sorry.
okay, the process
See,
is,
it cuts out.
the process is a town board has to make a decision on the rezoning. If you assume that the project was rezoned, the next thing that the developer would have to do is go through sort of a process by which they say, hey, we can make this work, or we're going to need to apply for a zoning variant and area variance. Then they would go through an area variance process with the ZBA. If granted the area variance, then they would take the project with the new zoning and the area variance and go to planning board for site plan approval. So
Okay.
that's the sort of the
I-
process.
Well, they set the stage, when they show this diagram, they set the stage, okay, to where the building is plotted, and it shows the
Frequently, there are
setback. So,
changes from what we see at a town board meeting to what I see at a planning board meeting or a ZBA
I
meeting.
understand that. I've had a construction business for 41 years, and I've built things. So I'm just asking the question. It just, when you set the stage and you see that plotted there, and you see how much setback there is to Young's Road, and I lived in this town my whole life, and you know that Young's Road is an extremely busy road, and sometime in the future, when they want to widen Young's Road, and they can't, then it's a problem, okay? That's all I'm saying. Thank you.
Understood. Thank you. Okay, anything, Don, please.
One more, just the point. I hope Sean didn't mean he think I was wrong in my assessment of what a land use decision is versus what a construction process is. This is just an idea. I hate to say this. It's sort of like throw it against the wall and see who objects to it, sort of thing. But it's more than that. It's what they probably want close to, maybe, and that's a big maybe. But the point is balancing the needs of the residential community against what is now a change in land use from residential to office building, which must be justified such that the process here is beneficial both to the surrounding people whose residential properties may be affected by the decision. So getting too deep into the weeds on this probably distracts from your view of what you're doing here, which is really the land use decision on changing the residential zoning to an office building zoning. And I think that's where we need to be very clear that is justified. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other comments or questions? Okay, see none. I'm going to motion to
Close.
close the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor? And I'm going to amend that motion. I'm going to motion to close the public hearing and set a decision date for our next April board meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thanks. Thank you. All right, next item on the agenda is a development review action. It's resolution 2025-344. It's a resolution of commitment on the proposed public improvements for 1789 Dodge Road, proposed realty subdivision. I will say that this also has a conjoined communication, which is clocked in on the consent agenda later on. That has to do with correspondence from Joseph Rubino regarding the project at 1789. So on the resolution of commitment, going to motion to adopt the resolution at this time.
Second.
On the question, anything? All in favor?
Wait, I'm sorry. I would just like to note, because I do think the language of the resolution is confusing, even though it's correct, that the supporting documentation does confirm that Mr. Rubino is not seeking condominium status. And that is in the documentation here, or has no intention to seek condominium status.
And that's
I
reflected.
just want in his
it's
documents.
reflected in communication 28. So,
Thank you.
So on the motion, we're acknowledging communication 28. The developer has no intention of condominium status. There was a motion, there was a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All right, the next item on the agenda is public expression. I'm going to motion to open public expression at this time.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Mary Dormer?
Good evening, Supervisor Kolpa, Deputy Supervisor Lavin, and Amherst Town board members. My name is Mary Dormer, and I reside in Gettsville. I'd like to go back to the presentation that was made on March 10th, 2025, and I'd like to have a response to the following questions that went unanswered at that time. And please, Deputy Supervisor Lavin, please feel free to chime in, because this is the part of the project that you voted for, and here are my questions. Number one, Supervisor Kolpa, you gave a reason as to why the Boys and Girls Club was removed from 4110 North Bailey facility because of non-payment of utility bills and monthly rental. I have reviewed the lease for the Boys and Girls Club and cannot find anywhere in the agreement that the Boys and Girls Club was responsible for utility bills. However, we would like to see documentation as an amendment to the lease that your statement on the utility bills payment is correct. We are aware that the Boys and Girls Club did pay the utilities from 2015 to 2017, even though it wasn't in their lease agreement. According to the current process, the town has been paying for them from 2018 until the present. At this point in time, this does not appear to be a valid reason for the Boys and Girls Club to be removed from the premises. Number two, are you aware that O'Connell and Company have not paid the $1 a year lease since signing this agreement? Also, with regard to O'Connell and Company, their lease indicates that they are responsible for grass cutting, which is currently being done by the town. O'Connell and Company still have not, in accordance to their lease, provided a neighborhood arts program and/or a speaker series. Does this mean they are in violation of their lease and the lease will be terminated? To our surprise, you indicated that the North Bailey facility would be used as a post-blizzard plan because of their kitchen facilities. Just wondering if you've seen their kitchen facilities. I would strongly encourage you to visit the facility and review that statement if you would. We asked what happened, number four, we asked what happened between the agenda published on February 1st, 2024, and when the meeting took place on February 5th, 2024, regarding the rezoning of the 1350 Eggert Road project. We would appreciate a response to this question. Number five, we also asked what transpired between February 5th, 2024 to December 16th, 2024 for the town and the developer to change the plans from townhouses to a youth center. We'd also appreciate a response to this question. And finally, number six, why are the building plans for the youth center dated February 2022 before the decision was made to not build the townhouses and while you were looking for alternative sites? Thank you.
Good evening Supervisor Culpa, Deputy Supervisor Lavin, and Town Board members. My name is Jerry DeCosmo and I reside on Meyer Road. My questions this evening have to do with the status of Station 12. Can you please give us an update on the current status of this unfinished project? The project has been going on for the last 6 years. Residential and retail property owners have put up with this unfinished project that has become a symbol of poor planning with no apparent near-term completion date. Station 12 is costing town residents lost tax dollars in addition to being a blemish on our community. To make matters worse, the former Dunn Tire building at 3045 Sheridan is an eyesore to adjacent buildings and is said to be rat infested. If you owned those businesses, will you tolerate those conditions, let alone for 6 years? Residents have been patient for over 6 years in anticipation of this project being completed. The April 6, 2022 edition of the Amherst Bee quoted Supervisor Culpa saying, their construction permits were set to expire at the end of March. We met with them and made it clear that we're not going to renew their permits if they didn't agree to at least finish 3 buildings on the site and begin work before the permits ran out at the end of March. The article goes on to quote Supervisor Culpa stating, the current timeline should mean businesses on the site opening in 2023. WS Development completed the buildings, but the site remains empty. Are business owners and neighborhood residents supposed to tolerate this situation with no explanation and no expectation of when this property will be occupied? Supervisor Culpa called Station 12 the prettiest ghost town in America. It's about time to go to Plan B and figure out how to get this project done. Finally, it appears that the assessed value for the 2 properties comprising Station 12, 3151 and 3055 Sheridan Drive, was lowered by $2.9 million for 2024. Correct me if I'm wrong. Does WS Development's decreased tax burden get redistributed to other taxpayers when the 2026 tax levy is set? In hindsight, it's clear that starting multiple large, expensive projects in Amherst was a poor decision. How many unfinished projects in Amherst are acceptable? With this track record and the recent media attention surrounding the Boulevard Mall renovation and the proposed Eggert Road Community Center, can the taxpayers expect these 2 additional projects to be the next boondoggles in Amherst? Is anyone else here concerned that the pace of development may be outpacing our ability to manage it? Would a moratorium give us the breathing room to get this right? Thank you for your attention.
Joseph Mertens.
Joseph Mertens, Troy Delway. Good evening, town board members and Supervisor Culpa. At the board meeting on 3/24, our Assistant Supervisor Lavin asked for a passage of a resolution 2025-339 for $1,000 for audiovisual equipment. It was never mentioned what it was for specifically. May I ask what the purchase was for? Possibly a new additional microphone would be great, as the current situation makes it hard to hear from the board or the citizens to be heard by the voting audience during public expression. To be noted, the YouTube production is very clearly heard from the TV at home. Now, listening tonight, the only one I could really hear is Jackie, okay? And Brian, you have a tendency to speak very lightly so that the people in the back aren't going to hear you at all. I mean, these are the people that come to see what's going on in our community. Number 2, the reference change order number 04-SU Royal Park job number 2019-.55 for $59.4 thousand to increase the netting and poles for safety and better contain the soccer and lacrosse balls from exiting onto the 290 freeway. While you're at it, don't forget to add field access gates that need to be installed to facilitate maintenance and emergency access to the soccer field, and then add safety and user access controls for tennis course lights. These are common engineering standards for all the ineptitude of the design, especially the netting and emergency exit gates. After all, I would think that the bouncing ball would never end up on the freeway so close to the field. Who approved the concept and design and forgot about the common sense items that result in cost overruns when we spent over $7.5 million for the design and approval? How many more design items have been forgotten along the way? The annual cost increase rising to $795 annually of the Audubon Golf Course has been mentioned previously in meetings in being excessive, and the income, $400,000 from golf, goes into the general fund, AKA the slush fund. When the cost of golfing could be reduced back to 2 years ago for the public or put back into the course, it could use improvements. Is the board going to reduce the increased golfing fees? And last but not least, did Severino receive cost tax abatement for the apartments going up on Sheridan Drive near Jordan Road? If so, how much? Thank you. By the way, happy Easter to everyone here tonight. All right, so let it be a good one. Thank you.
Tom Weisbeck.
Good evening, Town Board. I'm here back here. Can you hear me? How's that? Tom Weisbeck, Drawbridge Court. I'm here talking about that Bitcoin plant in Niagara Falls.
Tom, I wasn't able to meet with you because my mother's been in the hospital.
I
So
got
I
sick,
will
too.
reach out.
I'm back on my feet, so I was just coming here just to touch base on this.
So I will reach out to you.
Okay. I just want to let you know, it's not far from the town of Amherst border. I mean, it's right on Tonawanda Creek Road, Erie Boulevard. And I've been involved over there trying to oppose that plant, but there's a proposal in Dunkirk about adopting the same thing, the same type of nuclear, what is it called? A small modular nuclear plant. So if we get on board to oppose this, we may be able to stop that one down. That's right on Lake Erie, right in Dunkirk, where they had the Dunkirk steam station. So, I mean, I'm trying to get communities throughout Erie County to make a resolution to stop any of this type of Bitcoin plants ever established in Erie County. So, that's what I'm trying. Thank you for your time.
John Traber.
John Traber, Mount Vernon Road. I have a document dated 3/24/25 pertaining to Resolution 2025-322. This resolution was to appoint a purchasing clerk at the Highway Department effective the day after the resolution with an annual salary of just over $84,000. The resolution includes a statement that this appointment is to replace an employee that transferred to another department. What makes this job appointment so intriguing is that the employee that was replaced had an annual salary listed as approximately $72,000. The person appointed to take his place is starting the same job with an extra $12,136. Why the jump in salary? Is this person more experienced? Does the new person have more seniority? It doesn't seem that either is the case, because it appears the person has only worked for the town full-time since 2021. So why would someone be removed from one position and replaced with someone else at a higher rate of pay? Well, it just so happens that this new person was a supporter of the recently elected highway superintendent. It is also interesting to note that this new appointee has contributed substantially to the Amherst Democratic Committee, the chairman of the Erie County Democratic Committee, the Erie County Executive, and 6 other Democratic candidates, to which 2 sit on this town board. This brings to mind Resolution 2024-48, regarding the appointment of the person that was hired to work in the town court that makes close to $100,000 a year and does very little, but she is connected to someone. How many people have been hired by this administration that receive generous compensation only because they know someone, or they're being paid back for their loyalty at the expense of the resident taxpayers? Can a town that recently raised property taxes 11.4% and is still running short of funds continue to recklessly spend the hard-earned money of its citizens on bloated salaries for friends and political allies? Thank you.
Good evening, town board members. Thank you for my 3 minutes to give a presentation regarding Resolution 364 today, the settlement of Article 7 matter of Airport Landing Center, LLC Town of Amherst. What's important is that the geographic context of the proximity to Ellicott Creek is important, that the Buffalo Niagara International Airport, the Interstate Thruway 190, and the New York State Route 5 Main Street are the transportation vortex of northwestern New York State. And that there's an opportunity here having to do with traffic pollution mitigation as far as the walkable village outside the door here, as far as an environmental restoration of the town, that the this environmental greenway is part of the New York statewide greenway project that the Western New York Greenway Planning Summit meeting was at Buffalo State last Friday, and that the planner from the town of Amherst, I'm not sure if she went, as far as, and also the planner for the village of Williamsville didn't go, that the, as far as the process, that there's going to be an regional economic development council meeting on Friday, April 11th, at the Hallmark Stadium regarding the statewide projects. As far as there's an opportunity here for the Village of Williamsville update of the 2015 community plan meetings. We've had 2 of them, and but also what's interesting is that you have as far as the town, I think it was at the last meeting, approved section resolution 264 regarding the cooperation agreement with the Village of Williamsville, CRS 5336. As far as we're looking at a $10 million 5-year capitalization for the Ellicott Creek, the Niagara Watershed Greenway, Parks and Trails, the historic preservation of the trails, the indigenous cultural history of where you're sitting. And I would like to, that the process, that the connection of the Glen Park Joint Board with the town of Amherst Central Park. This is the town of Amherst Central Park Greenway, Parks and Trails, and it interconnects all the parks and trails in the Niagara watershed greenway, and it's a part of the Niagara River Greenway as far as the relicensing settlement through 2050. And I shouldn't say that they shut it off at Niagara Falls Boulevard, but there's an opportunity here that they're calling for, that this is a part of a statewide greenway program having to do with the infrastructure as far as the tying it into the school districts, as far as the environmental education center down in the contaminated building down there, that there's an opportunity here for, as far as your carbon footprint.
Thank you, Tom.
Thanks, Tom.
And I've got a present for you.
Okay.
All right.
Ray Herman.
Good evening. I'm Ray Herman, Oak Grove Drive. I just wanted to make a brief remark concerning something that did concern me. I read in the Amherst Bee, there was an editorial where apparently the town attorney had talked to their editorial people and felt that certain individuals, they were here at the beginning of March, who spoke and identified themselves as candidates, that somehow they had violated some kind of open meeting law or something of that nature. And I would just like to say, I've been an attorney for 40 years now, and I really I'm not aware of any specific prohibition that's against the law to simply introduce yourself as a candidate. But if there were, I would expect this board to debate that matter and create a specific rule. So I don't feel that these individuals at all did anything unlawful. In fact, they brought up matters relevant to town business that have been brought up many times before concerning the Bailey Avenue building, the building on Eggert Road, the proposed youth center. These questions obviously are very concerning to a lot of residents, and I think they're certainly relevant to the business of the town. So I just didn't think it was proper for a town attorney to sit down with the editorial board of the Bee and imply that they had done something illegal. I think that the preference should be at a meeting to allow the public to speak. And if there is something that is political, I am fine with saying no. In fact, there was a meeting I did attend in December in which there was an individual who did start trying to make a political speech, and the person was told, don't do that, and they stopped. So I think the time to do that is at the time. So if something's improper, just let the people know. But, just sort of sitting and wait and then getting an editorial written where it's implied that they somehow violated the law, I really don't feel they did. But if you want to create a rule about that, we can have a debate about that. I still think it's okay to say you're a candidate. And I know today one of those individuals just introduced herself without saying that. And I think that's probably going forward their intention not to introduce that. So that's all I had to say. Thank you.
Okay. Just to clarify, the Amherst Bee called our attorney's office asking for clarification on the law. It wasn't a decision on the town's part to contact the Amherst Bee. Though that being said, there's a recognition that if somebody's out of order, it's my job to basically rule it out of order. I've allowed the conversation. I haven't stopped it. If I felt that somebody was going beyond and using the microphone to campaign, then would stop. But so it was more of a, can you tell me the extent of rules of order in the law? And that was the question and answer. I'll answer the other questions that I wrote down later, but I just wanted to make sure that we're clear on that. and I do recognize that is my responsibility. So if there was something I felt was beyond, then I certainly would be willing to say that. So.
Don Smith, North Lawn. When I looked at the agenda, I saw one agenda item there that I sort of thought was, maybe it's my misunderstanding. That was 352, the amend the local law, chapter 175, taxation for accessory dwelling units. And so I like to get a definition between a primary unit and an accessory unit, is in terms of what is an accessory unit, what is a primary unit. If there exists that definition such that the size or assessment differential or something there that differentiates the two, then my comments here probably don't need to be made. But if they're not, I think there would be, I can see scenarios where somebody with a small primary unit, 700 square feet or something like that, has a large property, puts a 3,000-foot accessory unit on there, and then takes a taxation dwelling. If that's not the possibility, then
it would invert itself at that point.
oh, okay, that's all I'm saying is that
We're
as long
only setting the public hearing today, Don.
Okay.
So there's going to be a full presentation on that law that's included in there by someone from our department. I believe it's the April 28th meeting. I can double check in here. But there should, and that will also have a public hearing where you can ask additional questions if you want more definitions there.
The only reason I'm asking because the local law was put into the agenda.
Yeah, that's the template for it, but there'll be,
No,
yeah.
the local law wasn't. It was just setting the,
Of setting a
Okay,
public hearing.
So I just want to make sure there's no disparity between what's primary and what's accessory, that's all.
right.
Yeah.
Yes, that's the draft she'll present on for that local law. So that is not yet a local law. She'll do the full public hearing that we're setting tonight for April 28th, I believe.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're right.
Done anything.
You don't have to sign in, Matt. Just state your name and address.
Okay, thank you. Matt Plunkett, North Hill Drive. Ms. DeCosmo, your comments about Station 12 kind of rang true. I happened by there on Saturday. I don't always get over to that side of town now that I've moved out this way. And that section down by the old Dunlop tire facility looks like a dump. It just looks like a dump. It's, you know, very unattractive. I mean, and I will tell you, and this is my own opinion for what it's worth, driving down Eggert Road and looking at the back wall of that facility reminds me very much of pictures of the old Berlin Wall. I mean, it's just kind of hideous, the whole thing. And I know, you know, what people have mentioned it before, and the comment always is, well, the town board has no control over what the owners do with it in terms of arranging for tenants and stuff like that. I read the couple of articles in the past week in the paper about the situation at Boulevard Mall, and I found them very interesting. There obviously appears to be some, you know, difference of opinion between the supervisor and Mr. Jamal over what's going on over there and who's responsible for the situation. It sounded to me, from having finished reading both articles a couple of times, that rather than hiring eminent domain counsel to figure out what to do with the process, it sounds to me like both sides would be better off hiring divorce counsel. At the last meeting, towards the end of the meeting, the supervisor commented on the situation at Royal Park, and he mentioned that more and more organizations are coming forward looking to make arrangements to use the park, and maybe there's the prospect of selling naming rights and that sort of thing. That's a wonderful thing, except for the fact that the park is already substantially controlled by Damon University under the terms of the lease. The more organizations that go in there to run their activities in that park, there'll be even less opportunity for the residents to use that park, to the point that your average daily resident will probably never be able to get in there at all. You know, I just don't think that's right. I've written twice now to the president of Damon University inquiring about what his plans are for the drugs they plan to use and sell there, as mentioned in the lease agreement between the university and the town. Still no answer, and I'm not holding my breath for one. One final thing, Councilmember Berger, I'm sorry to hear your mother's in the hospital. I hope she's okay.
Anything further?
Oh, that's.
Chris Strangaski, Mill Street. It's been brought to my attention that there are people out testing on Westwood Country Club property. I'd like to know, maybe you can explain to me or in the audience, who's out there and why are they out there and what are they testing for? I mean, I think it's long overdue that, and Mr. Lavin, maybe you could step up because you're going to be running for town supervisor. Why don't you conduct a town hall meeting, bring in the New York State DEC, and we could all answer questions of what the reports that we've seen with the materials that we've found on that property. I think this is long overdue. It would definitely show some leadership and show that you are really concerned about this community. So I'm going to come every meeting from now on. I'm going to ask the same question. When are you going to bring the New York State DEC into this room for a town hall meeting with the residents to clarify once and for all whether it's contaminated or contrived? Now, with regard to Boulevard Mall, I thought we were all done with the eminent domain. I thought JCPenney had agreed that they wanted to be a part of this new facility, whatever it's going to be, and we were going to move forward. After reading both the article in the Buffalo News and the editorial, Cool It, I thought that was cute. Where are we with this property? Are we eminent domaining? Are we waiting for a judge to make a decision on how much the town has to compensate JCPenney for the taking of their property? The other question is Jamal, why not let Jamal just go ahead and do what he wants to do there? I mean, he says that he wants to put stores back in there. I find that going to be a heavy lift. I don't think that's going to happen. Having been in that mall for over 35 years with businesses, I don't see that happening at all. But at some point, I mean, at the end of the day, Mr. Jamal, you own it, you bought it, it's time to move on it, and and he should be paying for it. The taxpayers of the town of Amherst have already invested indirectly $40 million in that sewer project to help facilitate the development of that property. Even though the town of Amherst only contributed $10 million, it was a $40 million bonding. So I think the town has rezoned the property and the sewer situation. It's time for him to step up and get the project done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dave Howard, 194 Roycroft Boulevard. At the March 10th meeting, the supervisor made a comment that he'd heard multiple times that Damon University has not contributed to the Royal Park Sports Complex. He then stated that Damon is contributing to the upkeep and maintenance of the field and the field house at the sports complex. Let me remind the supervisor that if Damon had the land and the money to build their own sports complex, they would also have to maintain it. So Damon is doing nothing more than any other college or university has to do. What Damon is not doing that every other college and university has to do is pay for their own sports facility. Amherst and New York State taxpayers are doing that for Damon. So I'll remind the supervisor and this board that you've squandered Amherst taxpayers' money, increased the debt burden on Amherst taxpayers, all for the benefit of a private university, and that is wrong. Thank you.
Anybody further?
Dennis Hoban, 216 California Drive, Williamsville, New York. Apologize for not being here at the last couple meetings. I don't know if I could say I was out campaigning. I probably shouldn't say that. And I won't say that I'm running for town supervisor either, okay? I want to make that clear. I'm not going to say I'm running for Amherst Town Supervisor. I just had I don't have any pearls of wisdom tonight, okay? But what I do have is probably some common sense. I haven't seen a lot of that up when I come to these Amherst Town Board meetings, I'm sorry to say. Well, I know it's funny, but it's the truth. I just got to ask, and I'm not even sure, I should know this, but the lease with the, is it the Ellicott Development Company? Is that with the Eggert Road School? It used to be the Eggert Road School, I remember that, because I grew up not too far from there. That's like $379,000. Am I close? Is that like $400,000 a year we're leasing that for? Somebody help me out here. 300 plus $300,000 a year. We're going to lease the youth center for. Okay. Well, I just, we're paying out that money every year, and yet we have these leases that you people, all 5 of you, have voted for, where we were going to lease an $11 million theater complex for $1, and we've got this sports complex, this Royal Parkway Sports Complex, that we basically give away to Damon University for $1, and then you've got Mary O'Connell, is it, who's renting a church on Bailey Avenue, used to be a church. She's getting that for $1 a year. I mean, does that seem like you guys are using common sense? I mean, maybe I'm not getting this, but I mean, you're renting these facilities for $1 a year, and we're going to rent a place for, $300,000-$400,000 a year. And it's the kicker is it's not even on town property. Where you're building they're building a facility. It's not even that we're going to get into a lease. It's not even on town property. And is that the 20-minute, 20-second thing? Okay, I got a little more time left. But I mean, you built a sports complex for Damon University on town property. I just, there's still common sense here. You built softball diamonds on property that we don't own on Maple Road because you got yourself in a jam and you sold the property. I mean, there's some common sense. Can we just use some common sense here? Mr. Supervisor, Mr. Deputy Supervisor, did I get cut off here?
Yep.
There we
Thanks,
go.
Dennis.
Can we just use some common sense? Thank you.
Anything further? Move to close public expression.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next item on our agenda is the consent agenda. I'm going to ask Deputy Clerks to please read tonight's consent agenda.
Councilmember Lavin, 1. Councilmember Zuccollo, 1, 2. Councilmember Marinucci, 1. Town Attorney, 4 through 28. Town Clerk, 1. Assessor, 1. Comptroller, 1, 2. Contract Compliance, 1, 2, 3. Engineering, 1, 2, 3. Highway, 1, 2. Human Resources, 1, 2, 3, 4. Planning, 1. Police, 1, 2, 3, 4. Senior Services, 1, 2. Sewer Plant, 1. Under Communications, 1. Consent, 2. Receive and file and refer to attorney, 3. Refer to attorney, 4, 5, 6, 7. Refer to attorney and planning, 8. Receive and file, 9. Refer to attorney, planning and engineering, 10. Refer to attorney and planning, 11 and 12. Refer to attorney. Thank you.
All right, I'll motion to adopt the consent agenda.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Next item on our agenda is the Paradise Park restroom improvements. It's an amended bond resolution in the amount of $645,000. I'm going to motion to adopt that resolution at this time.
Second.
All in favor? Oh, sorry. I'm going to first motion to adopt the seeker findings.
No, we did that.
We did the.
We need a voice.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I don't think we did.
No, we did not do seeker.
Yeah, we have
I'm
to
going to
do
motion
seeker.
to adopt the seeker findings associated with the bond resolution.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Amended now I'm going to motion the amended bond resolution.
Second.
And with that, I'm going to ask our town clerks for a voice vote, please.
Supervisor Culpa?
Yes.
Deputy Supervisor Lavin?
Yes.
Councilmember Berger?
Yes.
Councilmember Zucala? Councilmember Marinucci?
Yes.
Next item on the agenda is the Klein Road Transportation Improvements Bond Resolution in the amount of $490,000. I'm going to motion the bond resolution as it appears.
Do we have to do seeker?
I don't think so.
I think it's
Yes.
include.
Oh, yep, it says it.
We're not through engineering, but I'll motion the seeker associated with the transportation improvements.
Second.
On the question, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, now I'll motion the bond resolution.
Second.
And I would ask our town clerk for a voice vote, please.
Supervisor Culpa?
Yes.
Deputy Supervisor Levin?
Yes.
Councilmember Jackie Berger, sorry.
Yes.
Councilmember Zucala?
Yes.
Councilmember Marinucci?
Yes.
Okay, the next item on our agenda is the next, well, first we have to go off agenda for the purposes of dealing with one suspension item. Yep.
I don't believe number 3 was included on the consent agenda. I think it skipped to 4.
You're right. You
There's
want to do a
debate
voice
about
vote?
it.
You wanted to do a
We do
voice
wanna
vote?
do a
Yes.
voice vote. Okay, so resolution 351 is an assembly, it mimics Assembly A04030 and Senate S03282 bills to alienate a portion of 1265 Smith Road as parkland. Anybody who doesn't know, it's a passive area, and it is an area that we need to permit the construction of a cell tower. If you're not familiar, the northeast corner of Amherst has gaps in cellular data and our own communications data. So we are planning to utilize that area for a Verizon cellular tower. So I'm going to motion to adopt the resolution as it appeared.
Second.
And with that, I would ask our town clerk for a voice vote. So that is the resolution inclusive of the seeker negative declaration. So with that, I would ask our town clerk for a voice vote.
Supervisor Culpa?
Yes.
Deputy Supervisor Levin?
Yes.
Councilmember Berger?
Yes.
Councilmember Zucala?
Yes.
Councilmember Marinucci?
Yes.
Next is, we have one suspension item this evening. I'm going to motion to leave the agenda for the purposes of hearing one suspension item.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Supervisor. The suspension item is as follows, requesting the following budget transfers with regard to Resolution 2025-32 for award of New York State mini bid of 2025015, and I so.
Okay,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
And I'll motion to return to agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next, I'll motion to open the second round of public expression. I will answer all the questions after following the second round of public expression.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
John Traver, Mount Vernon. I'd like to repeat a question asked at the last board meeting on 3/24/25, and it's related to Resolution 2024-996, which is the acquisition of the property located at 218 and 330 Maple Road, the old Buffalo Shooting Club. According to the resolution, the town paid $5.72 million on a short-term loan for the entire property. I believe this was explained at a town board meeting that there was an understanding that UBMD would purchase a portion of this property back from the town. So the town would own the ball fields and UBMD would own the rest. The UBMD transaction was to be completed the first quarter of 2025. We now have completed the first quarter of 2025. And I'd like to know, what is the status of this real estate transaction between Amherst and UBMD? Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, town board members. My name is Jerry DeCosmo. I'm from Meyer Road. I'd like to mark my objection to the communication 2025-27, requested by Benderson Development to rename Beaumont Parkway to Costco Way or Costco Boulevard. The Meyer residents were initially assured that there would be no access to Meyer Road. Then the road was proposed as a minor pass-through, and now it appears as a full-blown thoroughfare. Obviously, this road will be a major access to Costco, in spite of the residents' assurance that there would be no access to Meyer Road. What is the process for renaming a road? And I'm requesting that this renaming not occur and that Beaumont remain Beaumont. Thank you.
Any further?
Matt Plunkett, North Hill Drive. I was looking at the agenda for tonight's meeting, and one thing that caught my eye under the town attorney's report, there was something like 21 Article 7 actions on there to be settled tonight. That seems to be like rather a lot of assessment actions to resolve in one meeting, and if you go back to the beginning of the year, we've probably settled close to 40 assessment actions since the first of the year. And you know, each one of these actions or filings is a separate lawsuit against the town, somebody fighting over their assessment. I have to think for every assessment that's gone to or assessment dispute that's gone to an Article 7 action, there's been a whole bunch that were settled otherwise, which kind of makes me wonder what's going on with the assessment process here when you have so many people unhappy with their assessments that they're going to court to fight them. And I know we just went through a reval here a year or so ago, and I suppose in the immediate aftermath of a reval, you're going to get more assessments than usual, or more Article 7s than usual. But that just seems to me like a lot, and I'm wondering whether maybe somebody doesn't need to take a look at the way assessments are being done. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Further motion.
He just spoke. That's one.
I just had a question on those resolutions that you passed earlier. The one was renovations to a bathroom on, what road was that?
Paradise Park.
Paradise. $645,000. I'd like an explanation on that. Renovations to a bathroom. That seems like a lot of money. And then $490,000 for some kind of transportation on, what was it, Transit Road or Dodge Road? I forget which one. Pardon me? Oh, Klein, thank you. Klein Road was like $490,000. So you're like, there's over $1 million, I think, right there. And I'm just wondering what that was all for. $645,000 for bathroom remodeling. I'd like to see what those faucets look like. Maybe they're gold. But anyway, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anything further? If not, a motion to close public expression.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I'm going to take some questions here out of order. First, Klein Road transportation issues had to do with the intersections, mostly the signalized intersections, including the signal at Klein and Hopkins. If you're in that area, you recognize there's a lot of left turn movements, pedestrian activity near the plaza, the Dashes Plaza on the Klein. There's backups significantly in both directions. There's also issues at some of the intersections near Young's. We have some corrective measures ultimately that we have to deal with in terms of looking at the intersections of Forest. Today's resolution really centered on a couple of those enhancements that we're going to need. Intersections aren't cheap. Lights, signalization work is not inexpensive. Regarding the Paradise Park, that's a new building and new infrastructure. We don't currently have sewer or water run out to there. The people there for pickleball and soccer and other activities right now are using a porta-john. That is in addition to money that we received from legislator Chris Green in order to construct that restroom. It's not cheap work, but it'll be a new building and good for that facility moving forward. There are a lot of Article 7 matters. It's not, I don't think it's not significant increase or decrease from what we've seen at other full reassessments. It's been 6 years since it was 6 years time spacing between assessments. So that's what's contributing to the Article 7 matters. Regarding, I'm it says improvements. It's a park. It's considered a park improvement. It is a new build. It's a brand new building. No problem.
Supervisor, if I may interrupt, in the map plan and report, which is included as a supplement to the, I'm sorry too, in the map plan and report that is included as a supplement to that resolution, it's page 152 of the agenda packet. It says a new approximately 1,250 square foot, single-story, ADA compliant, permanent Class C building will be constructed at grade to replace use of temporary portable restrooms. This building shall include restrooms and storage and will be located in close proximity to the other recreational elements. So the map plan report does fully line out what this bond is for. If you turn to page, I think it's 155, I can find exactly, but there's a full delineation of the 4 parts of Klein Road as well that is part of that bond specifically. As someone who does live near one of those intersections, and the day that I took this seat, I heard from many of my neighbors that they were very concerned because someone drove onto their front lawn on Klein Road. I'm excited about that, but there is a full Klein Road transportation improvement on page 166, which goes through.
Okay,
But
all
you
right.
did also ask that, so I just want to
Okay.
make sure that you know that there is more explanation than what the supervisor is saying here in that packet online if you have additional questions.
I'm going to continue with some of the other questions regarding Maple Road and the Gun Club. The first quarter has ended. We are very close. The attorneys have been trading comments. I'm going to leave it at that. I don't have any reason to believe that we're going to have to go to an RFP action at this time. So again, that's between attorneys at the moment. Regarding the Boulevard Mall, where do we stand? We have always said that we would negotiate value, both pre and post eminent domain transactional value. We are negotiating that with JCPenney's as one of the members of the eminent domain action. We also have to value Benderson's properties and continue to work with Benderson and Mr. Jamal relative to that project. Frustrations by any one of those entities at this point in time, for whatever reason they're frustrated, is not going to necessarily push us into a process where we drop out of that, since we have engaged all parties. Nevertheless, we do hold all owners, property owners, they're accountable for their property conditions and their tax. We need to be made whole on tax, and properties need to be kept up as long as they're within the ownership of an individual. To that, I'm going to jump to Station 12 for a minute. Station 12 is a symbol in my mind of poor planning. It was adopted as a project before I took office. I've long since said that, one, the town had no teeth or stake in the project, which meant we would have no leverage. Second, it was done under single-use, single-occupancy, retail-only zoning, which would cause problems, as I predicted a long time ago, with lease and build out. And sure enough, here we are staring at a property without a lot of clawback potential, with single occupancy, retail only development. And the town has shares in the frustration without the ability to claw back anything, without the ability to intercede. We're at a little bit of a crossroads here with this space. My understanding is that WS plans to move forward with some of the tenant build out, which would be great, but we don't have jurisdiction over buildings sitting empty. So we have some dilemmas. Where we have had jurisdiction included forcing the developers to build buildings and create the buildings that they've said that they would build. We have been able to push back on years past tax challenges. Their valuation did increase in 25 again. They did not challenge their 25 tax. So it is back to where we think it should be in terms of full valuation, but it continues to be an albatross. And a lot of that has to do with the way that the town approved what I think was a short-sighted plan back in 16 and 17. Looking forward, CNS testing on the golf course, or the former golf course. They're now testing in further north in areas. We tested the southeast corner, and in order to continue to progress the plans through the north portion of the park, there was requested testing there. So CNS is testing further from our initial work area. CNS is our contracted organization. They've been our contracted organization. Regarding Royal Park, the reality is we're going to be renting time on that park space to Damon, just like we rent time to colleges and high schools at the North Town Center. And right now, that ultimately will allow us to schedule open time as we want, and sell naming rights. The property itself is akin to any other investment that we have made, such as the North Town Center. And, you know, we look at it still as something that's going to be tremendously used by the community. And then finally, I'm going to move to a couple of questions regarding the 4110 Bailey. I had said specifically, and will reiterate, that the town approached the developer at Eggert Road about building a youth center, as we had not been successful in obtaining a building from People's Incorporated, and we're still interested in finding space in that area and close to Echo Park. Regarding that building, there had been a kitchen facility. The intent is, we have looked at it from the standpoint of a shelter. The intent basically is to create ancillary senior center, or an auxiliary senior center. We do plan to reinvest in new kitchen equipment and a new hood in that location. You know, that's kind of where we are. Other than that, I stand by all the statements I've made before about that facility. And with that, I thank you, and I'll motion to adjourn the board meeting.
One second, Supervisor. Just to Mr. Traber's question regarding the employee in the highway department. In last meeting's work session at the 4 p.m., I specifically asked for the replacement line to be struck because I did have a conversation with the highway superintendent that the new employee would be taking on additional duties than the previous employee had. I didn't see it as a replacement. I think it is more nuanced than that line in the resolution. And for that reason, I did support the change in the salary because there are additional purchasing responsibilities that will be assigned to the new role. I just think it's important to note that it is in the work session video. I had a specific request for that reason, because I didn't want it to be seen as a one-for-one replacement.
Okay. I'm going to motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?